What's up, buddy?
How's it going?
It's going good. What's funny is I put the wrong date in my my phones. So I signed on yesterday and I'm like, all right. And I was like, oh, it's wrong date.
I saw that too, and I was like, shit, did I put the wrong date on the invitation? I would start tripping, and I was like, no, no, early on there. I didn't mess this one up. Well, appreciate the time, Doc, and lots to get into. I want to get into both bands, but dude, I want to start off with the solo song that you had sent me, the killer cover of "Living on the Edge," and hilarious video for that one, the falling down spoof. Great to see the homies, Luis and DJ Will in that one. When did the idea for? Actually, let's back up. That tune was actually kind of born out of a Bad Wolves tune, or it was potentially going to be a Bad Wolves song initially when you recorded it and then decide to release it as a solo song.
Yeah, so during the pandemic, Bad Wolves was producing a lot of cover songs for our Patreon page. They weren't like being officially released. We were just kind of using it as a way to kind of get people into the Patreon page to try and because basically we weren't, all our business stopped and we couldn't really make money. So it was only one of the ways we can kind of get by. And so I was kind of tasked with working on that song. And I went through all, and so I put my all into it and got the instrumental done, and I didn't hear anything back. So I just kind of sat on it, and then we ended up splitting singers, or not having a singer briefly. And then we're like, all right, well, what are you gonna do with this Patreon page? And I'm like, well, maybe, I was like, maybe we can get guest singers. And then John, our drummer, was like, why don't you sing on it? Because I do a lot of the background vocals and vocal harmonies, and I was like, and I didn't even think about it, and I was like, all right, I can try. And went to the studio with producer Joseph McQueen and laid it down, and it came out good, a lot better than I thought it would have. And I was really proud of myself. And then and then the band didn't want to put it out, and I was like, well, I just busted my ass on this. It's really good, and we're not putting it out. I'm like, this kind of sucks. So I was like, well, it's like I'll just pay for it. I'll pay for the recording. I already did everything. The only other person on the song besides me is our bass player. He played bass on it, Kyle, and then he did a couple screams, like kind of they're like layered in, kind
Uh-huh.
of over some of my stuff. Um, but anyway, so I was just like, and I just kind of sat on it, and then right when we were kind of finishing up the record, I met this guy Miles Airforth, and he was filming behind the scenes stuff and interviews for Bad Wolves for the release of the album. And we were just kind of shooting the shit, and I was just telling him about the song. Man, I got this weird idea for this music video. And he was like, I'd love to shoot that. And then me and him just kept talking and, leading into that tour into the next year, into 2022, me and him, like, we actually, like, nailed it down. And, I did it for almost no money. And him and this guy, Matt Akana, he brought him on to, like, be this, to help out and shoot other stuff. And we did it over the course of basically 2 different days.
Ah.
And it was a lot of fun, a lot of work. Um, but and then I finished it then, so we're talking about like the end of 2022, and then but I didn't really have a plan about how I was going to put it out, and then kind of, things took a while to actually figure out what I was going to do, and after a while, I was like, I have to put this out. Let's just get it out.
So I'm glad you did, man. It's a killer cover. I love your singing voice. I'd sent you a message a while back talking about the God Forbid song "Walk Alone," which you do a ton of singing on.
Yeah.
So when this came out, I was like, okay, great. I know Doc can sing, and it sounded great. It was like a modern version of the Aerosmith classic, which I thought was really cool too, kind of modernizing it without getting too far away from the original.
Yeah, I think that's really important when you're doing a cover. Like I kind of feel like doing kind of picture perfect versions of covers are kind of useless to me.
Yeah.
It's like I really want the DNA of the artist who's covering it to kind of be at the forefront and do it like you almost have to approach it as like if I wrote this song, what would I do?
Right.
I know, and that's a tough art, and given, Bad Wolves history, with the zombie cover being such a pinpoint and what we're known for and being, and I had nothing to do with that. I didn't record a note of that. But you can see like about that what works is that it's a outside of maybe the big guitars, it's a complete reimagining of the structure and the tonality and the difference in the voices and everything. And that's like in a weird way, it lays a nice template of like what works in
Mhm.
a cover. And we did a cover of My Mom Coming Home by Ozzy, and that was kind of the same idea. It's like, well, we got to make it sound like a Bad Wolf song. We can't just do it exactly the same, the same as Ozzy, as much as amazing as that version is.
And I'm kind of curious, man. Like I said earlier, kind of a spoof on Falling Down for the video. Was there a decision process like Falling Down or They Live or something? Or was it kind of falling down from the get-go as far as kind of spoofing that?
Yeah, I don't know. It was I had definitive focus about what I wanted to do, and I really just went with where the inspiration took me, and it was a very like, there's something iconic. No, I mean, it is a very iconic film. The the way he's dressed and each one of those scenes or so. If you're like me, you're a movie guy, and I remember, God forbid, we used to have this van, this Astro van with a video, with like a little like mini VCR, and it was right when Blockbuster videos were closing down. So you could go to a Blockbuster and buy 5 videos for $5. And we would go to Blockbusters, or even like there would be a bin at Walmart
Right.
and be like the same thing. And we filled up this box with all these videos, and Falling Down was on there. I probably watched in that van, I probably watched Falling Down like 30 times. And so it's just like I had it memorized.
So just the one solo tune for now. Any thoughts towards more?
Yeah, it's been a weird couple years. Basically, if you go back to last year, basically we were finishing the Battles album, Die About It, at the beginning of the year. That's when we went in to record it, and I was like doing guitar solos and just kind of finishing that up. And then I got the call for Ice Nine Kills. So it was like 6 months of that right into the Bad Wolves album release, and we went out with Bush. And so it was like literally like an 8 month stretch where just like I was gone. And then this year, got really busy again. And so like I've kind of, I feel like my job as an artist, I barely get to write because I'm constantly just like practicing for gigs and getting this tour ready and doing promotions and doing, I have my own podcast and I'm
Sure.
working on that. And so I really need to create space in my life to focus on writing and being more creative in that sense. And basically this single, a big reason why it took a while to come out is Better Noise, who does Bad Wolves, the record label, wanted to release an EP of solo music along with this, and I just didn't have time to do it. So, and in hindsight, that I kind of, I think this release would have been better had it been part of a bigger piece of music.
Sure.
But I really need to like sit down and dedicate myself to that and make it a priority. But it's like between, Bad Wolves is going to start writing again for our next album, and God forbid, there's talks about doing some writing for that. So we'll
Ah.
see. I really need to hunker down and make writing kind of like the forefront. But I feel like I'm just constantly like promoting this tour and promoting these shows and getting and do the amount of promotion I did for this single was crazy.
A lot of work when it's all on your shoulders, one man band versus having, four or five other guys behind you to help in and all that. But I hope you do continue it, man, because I really, really dig your singing voice and
Thank
love the
you.
cover and look forward to that. Super excited and thank you from the bottom of my heart as a fan for the God Forbid shows finally in California, playing Gone Forever 20th anniversary. I imagine it's gonna be the album in sequence and everything.
Almost in sequence, just slightly tweaked, but more or less in sequence.
Are you gonna
And
be
so and a few extras in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, imagine, the album's only like 40 minutes or something like that. So you'd be
Well,
round.
it's 45 minutes or like just under 45 minutes or 42 minutes, something like that. And then there's a B-side from that we're also playing.
Ah,
So probably if we play with stops and kind of, talking to the crowd a little bit, just that whole piece is about 55 minutes.
and then are you gonna be dragging a piano out on stage for Judge the Blood or
No, it's my computer. My computer is the best piano player in LA.
were you the one that wrote that though on the and played it on the album, recording it?
No, well, I mean, so it was a guy named Mike. I forget his last name. Why I forget his last name? He plays keyboards in Symphony X.
Okay.
And great, one of the best metal bands in the world, and they're from Jersey. And he worked with my brother at Guitar Center at the time when
Oh,
Symphony X wasn't touring and stuff. Um, Great guy, and he played so he played that intro. It's basically just based on the chords. It's just like, a couple chords, and he kind of came up with something. And then there's a couple other keyboard moments on the record on Force Fed. There's a keyboard part on uh not Judge Blood, Precious Lie, and maybe one other song. And he came in for like, a few hours and just laid some stuff down. Nothing crazy. This is before, like, I think, we were all using digital computers and Logic
Sure.
and programming stuff. And like that was the first record we ever did to a click ever. It was the first record we ever did in Pro Tools. It was like, so it was all, everything was kind of new at that time. But he did keyboards on that. And then I don't know if he did stuff on the next record, but he definitely did some stuff on Earth's Blood. And then Michael Romeo, also from uh um
Symphony X.
Symphony X, did like a bunch of symphonic stuff. And so they've, because we shared a producer, and like, Jersey bands, we take care of each other. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's good to borrow some of their incredible talents, because they're like one of the most insanely technically proficient bands like on earth.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm curious, man. You talk about going from this project to that project and new bands and Vegas Nerve in there and all these other different projects. Going back and looking at what you did 20 plus years ago with God Forbid and Gone Forever, was there anything on the album where you're like, hey, not bad for the kid Doc and me? Or was there anything where you're like, ugh, what was I thinking? Why did I do that?
No, I listen, I think Gone Forever really is, you know, us, like, kind of, we were always a band that was seeking that next plane,
Hmm.
right? We had these bands we put on a pedestal, right? Carcass and Machine Head and Sepultura and At the Gates and Meshuggah and In Flames, and a lot of bands in our peer group, bands like Dillinger Escape Plan and Candiria and Hatebreed, and Cave In, and there's all these bands where, like, they're up here and we're down here and we're trying to get where they're at. And so that for us, I think, was the first record where we feel like we had graduated to just be in the air of the artists we were uh trying to not emulate, but be as proficient. Because I think back in the day, like, there was no faking it, right? When you went to see a band live and they blew your face off, there wasn't it wasn't computer, there wasn't no auto tune, there was no like, oh, is he really singing? They were singing,
Yep,
right?
yep,
And so there was no like cheating. You really had to, just to be great, you had to become that good. And
right,
so it was this constant idea of like, we have to get better, we have to get tighter, we have to write better songs, we have to, in that record, I remember in particular, there was like Arch Enemy, Wages of Sin was a big influence on that record, and Soilwork, what was it, Natural Born Chaos. Um, there was just certain albums and artists, like we were going back to like Burn My Eyes. We were going back to like, Far Beyond Driven, Pantera. There's, even Metallica, just we're like because we were really steeped in extreme music. And in
sure.
that record, we almost kind of got back to like a lot of the bigger artists that made us want to play. So there's a chord progression on Judge of Blood that I literally stole it's from Alice in Chains' Love Hate Love. And you would never know because we're playing it completely different, but
Right,
it's like things like that. Like, where on the previous record, we're trying to be the Haunted
right.
and shit like that. And on this record, we're like, no, we stole this chord progression from Radiohead. It's a totally different mindset.
Right, right, right. Kind of going for it, not exactly, but a little bit towards like this is going to be our Black album, or at least maybe that philosophy a little bit.
Yeah, well, just like expanding what you think it is, and having the confidence, and you're just a better musician, so you can kind of pull things you couldn't really achieve, you could pull off now.
And I'm sure a lot with you confidence in singing too, because a lot more singing on that record compared to the last one.
So I didn't sing it all on that record. So all the melodic vocals were actually done by my brother Dallas.
Ah,
And it was kind of like, you know, unlike me, Dallas was such a guy who just had complete confidence in himself. He never questioned himself, and he just went for it, and he had a natural gift for it. And then on the record after this, because he recorded the vocals and there would be like vocal harmonies, and so I just started singing the vocal harmonies live, and through practicing, through the course of that year, I got better. And then so on the next record, there's songs like we're harmonizing, or there's songs where I even have like the lead vocal, like I sing the chorus for like Constitution of Treason and Into the Wasteland and a bunch of stuff on a few songs. And then Byron's singing on that record too. So
Mm.
like To the Fallen Heroes, all the singing on that is Byron.
Oh,
Or,
wow.
so we're all singing and trying, so we're all just expanding our skill set and utilizing the different voices and the talents in the band.
Trying to bring out the melody and the harmony and all of it too.
Yeah, I mean, it was something, it was very contentious at that time. Like now, people are used to bands where it's singing and screaming and everything in between. But back then, it was like kind of people felt like you were betraying them, and you're selling out and you're trying to cross over. And I think Killswitch had a lot to do with that, because that record Alive or Just Breathing was so monumental. And I'd be lying to say that it didn't influence us, but we were already wanting to go a little more in that direction anyway. But I think the template they established, uh just it overnight, bands kind of changed their sound because of how influential that was. And I think and a lot of that definitely influenced us as well. I would definitely be lying if that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I was gonna say even maybe some Shadows Fall influence because obviously the Rev had both of you guys, and you guys were kind of almost brother bands as far as hanging out and doing a lot of shows together, and they took a big step forward on the War Within on their '04 record.
Yeah, but they were always, here's the thing, they were always doing that. So if you go back to, their first album, and Of One Blood, the title track Of One Blood, it's like a big singy chorus. So I felt like us and Shadows Fall were kind of like brother bands where we were kind of doing the same thing, but I felt their approach was just a bit different. Whereas like the Kill Switch, the type of singing was a lot more soulful.
Mm,
It was a bit more like there was something kind of there was an emotion to it that struck a little different. And and then at the end of the day, right, like you just have to do your thing, right? You
right,
can't sit there and go like, oh, we're gonna try and make a song like this band.
right.
But again, you are what you absorb, and I think hopefully I would think all us bands who were all, because we were all playing together, even like Killswitch, we did played so many shows with Killswitch back in the day, and Lamb of God and Unearth and Darkest Hour, and all those bands in the Northeast, and I'm sure all of us rubbed off on each other
Sure.
a little bit, and we borrowed a riff or got this idea in our head, and but I think we all had our own sounds that are distinct from each other. We all had like the things, it's like Unearth was like the breakdown band and the cool fancy guitar thing, and Darkest Hour was like the melodic thrash but punk rock version. And Shadows Fall was kind of like we're doing the 80s throwback thing
Yeah, yeah.
mixed with this. So everyone had their version of it,
Their
that
twist.
was our own thing, and I think that's really cool because it's your personalities, whatever kind of comes out is what comes out.
With all this music being basically 20 years old that we're talking about, is it time to start thinking or categorizing like a big four of metalcore? And how would you categorize that? Who would you put in there?
Well, the problem with that is the term metalcore, because it means different things at different eras, right? So metalcore meant something different in like 1998 than it meant in 2004, than it meant in 2012, and means today, right? So like the big four metalcore today might be, Bring Me the Horizon, Bad
Sure.
Omens, Spirit Box, and Ice Nine Kills or something, right? Whereas, back in our day, it might be As I Lay Dying and Kill Switch and I don't know,
Lamb of God.
yeah, Lamb of God or Parkway Drive or whatever. Like you can kind of so it, and then before that in the 90s it could be Biohazard and Earth Crisis and Cro-Mags, or I'm just throwing band names out there. I'm not kind of getting tied with it, but I think those that terminology kind of has evolved through the years. And I
For
think it's
sure.
beautiful, it's a beautiful thing that there's kind of this this line of culture that ties it all together, that there's something that makes an Earth Crisis have something in line with Bring Me the Horizon. Even though Sonic, if you were to listen to that now, you're like, that doesn't make sense. But if you follow the line,
Right.
that is how it kind of happened, and that's a really beautiful thing, you
Yeah.
know. So I think depends on the era, and then what we do, it's also people called it new wave of American heavy metal,
Right.
um, which is with God forbid, we've always been a weird band where like we've been a part of scenes, but we also just never really fit in with anyone. You know, like it's like hardcore kids like us, but they kind of like these other bands a lot more. Metalheads like us, but they kind of like these other bands a little more. We're kind of like we're the tag along kid that wasn't. They're like, how'd they get an invite to the party?
Well, dude, like I said at the beginning, man, seriously, thank you for doing this album in its entirety. It means a lot to me. I'm actually celebrating 20 years of being at KCAL at this specific station. So going back to '04 for me is a big important year. Getting fired from one and then hired at the next, and then having spent the past 20 years at the past one. Recently saw a Trey do their '04 album in its entirety, and it just really brought me back to 20 years ago and got me thinking about that time and era, and super excited for the show. So we got two shows. Well, one headline and then one opening. December 13th at the Regent downtown LA. That's going to be full on God Forbid show. And then the next night going to be support for Bleeding Through at House of Blues of Anaheim.
Yeah, I mean, it was strange how it all came together because uh Bleeding Through it opened up for God Forbid at the beginning of 2023 on the East Coast. And as soon as we did that, Brandon's like, well, you guys got to come play with us on the West Coast. And so we were trying to make that work that out for a while. And so we had that, and we're like, okay, but we got to do a couple headline shows. Because I feel like because on those Bleeding Through shows, we're kind of in the middle of the bill. So we're
Mhm.
probably only going to get a half hour or something like that. So we'll be able to play, I don't know, 60% of the record, but we're not gonna be able to play the full album. So this gives people opportunity to see a full set, and connect on that level and not just be, one of several bands. And I hope it goes well. I hope people come out, and I really like the lineup, playing with Burton C. Bell and Skin Lab and Ex Mortis and Thrown to Exile. It's like a really cool
Diverse.
eclectic metal bill, um, that I think people can have a lot of fun at, and that's the idea. I think, I've been living in LA for 10 years, and I love the LA metal community. And so the fact that we can kind of put something together that's emblematic of that, and kind of celebrates that is really, really important to me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see your set there and to see Burton on his own. I mean, I've heard the couple singles, but it'll be interesting to see him just out there fronting a band and to hear more of that solo music. I'm sure
Well,
it'll be
listen, I saw the show, and that's a big reason why they're playing is I saw him perform, and he does Fear Factory songs, he does Ascension of the Watcher stuff, does Geezer stuff from his whole career. So it's a really, and then you get to just see his talent as a vocalist, and kind of just his presence as a frontman is so, he's kind of an iconic figure. And I think I have history with him, but I think as metalheads, we have a history with his work, and so just kind of bringing a part of that. And even a band like Skin Lab that was signed to Century Media Records around the same time God Forbid was, and they disappeared for a while. Now they're doing shows and putting out new records. I kind of like that idea of like bringing some stuff from the past and from that we share history with, but then some more current bands like Ex Mortis and Thrown to Exile that are kind of tying everything together.
Yeah, going to be a hell of a bill. Definitely looking forward to that. And speaking of shows, just wanted to touch upon you're getting ready to head out with Bad Wolves on and Pop Evil Animal Instinct tour. Any chance of another leg getting added on, or is this just kind of because no SoCal show for that one?
I think it'll depend how well this does. I think so far it looks good, but I think the idea is if it does great and it's packed everywhere, then we'll probably look into that. But I think it's a great pairing in
Yeah, for
terms
sure.
of complementary styles and fans that I think would enjoy both bands. And then we also have a couple great openers, Oni and Sierra Pilot. Oni's been putting out some really great stuff lately. So we'll see. This is like kind of an experimental thing because we haven't done a proper co-headline tour since like our second tour ever with From Ashes to New in 2018.
Wow.
So it's, yeah, all the headline stuff we've done has just been like off dates of another tour.
Right.
And that's never really how, it's not never the best version of it, because it's a little hodgepodge.
Sure.
And so in this, this tour, we're with Poppy, we're going in on a video wall and we got lights and it's like a big, we've never done production like this. So it's for us, it's like exciting, but also kind of scary. Uh, and you want to kind of be able to pull off that, even though I think they're closing, but we're playing a headline set and you just want to bring it. And luckily we've been touring pretty consistently. Since the album came out, and we feel very locked in as a live band, and that's a good feeling. Just feeling locked in, feeling confident, knowing we're gonna rock the crowd. So
Looking forward to that. Well, looking forward to a second leg, hopefully. And
we'll see, we'll see. You know what I want to do? I would love to do like an acoustic kind of unplugged tour.
you did that at the whiskey or
We not the whiskey. We did it at
Costa Mesa. Yeah, yeah,
Jose's place in Seal Beach and at Affliction.
yeah.
And the thing is, we have like so many ballads and a lot that we just like when we do a normal set. It's like we kind of have a limit. It's like we can only play two ballads, all right. But there's like songs like from this album. There's one big song called "It's You" that we haven't really be able to fit in the set. There's a song from a couple songs from the previous record, The Middle, Springfield Summer, a song called Better Off This Way that we haven't really gotten a chance to play live. And it'd just be cool to kind of bust those out. So we'll see. Got to do a tour for the ladies.
Doc, I appreciate all the time, man. Last thing I wanted to hit you with, we're an old school radio station. We do a feature called Mandatory Metallica, and you're going to be a part of that. And I've been having this Metallica debate, me and my buddy debating their greatest album, greatest thrash metal album, and come down on opposing sides. So I want to get your take. It's 2 versus 3, Ride the Lightning versus Master of Puppets. If you had to pick one out of those two, which would it be?
I mean, I think it's pretty easy that it's Master of Puppets out of those two. I don't really get that as a debate. And by the way, and I'll say just I'm telling you because I just think one like I love Fight Fire with Fire, but it's just not my favorite Metallica song. Like I don't think it, you know, and I don't think there's no song I feel like that about on Master of Puppets. Like every
Right.
song is as good as the previous song. I say this for me, Metallica, Master of Puppets is the best album, but the Black Album's my favorite album. Does that make
Ooh,
sense?
ooh. Okay, no,
Like
no.
I
Break
get
it
the
down.
most enjoyment out of listening to the Black Album.
Hmm.
Even though on a technical sense, I could probably understand that Master of Puppets is a better album. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sort of. I'm just starting
He's
to
like,
get
I
me
don't
there.
get it.
Yeah, I mean, I get it as far as maybe songwriting and
Here's what I'm saying. Okay, like if you go to some four-star restaurant and you get a hamburger, you will go, this is a great this is is perfectly well done hamburger. But your favorite hamburger might be a McDonald's Big Mac
in and out.
or whatever. But my
Yeah.
point is like on a technical sense, you might say the four-star restaurant, maybe it's better, quote unquote, but your favorite is that's an emotional thing.
Mm.
That's a whatever how it speaks to you, like it gratifies you on a different level that is not inherently logical.
So, did the Black Album grab you from day one on that level, or is that something you've kind of grown into over the decades? Because I know for me, being that thrash kid, I was like, "What the?" when the Black Album first came
Well,
out.
I that's when I was discovering that's my entry point. So I think you have
Ah,
a autobiographical coming of age, kind of sentimental emotional connection to that music that hits you in a certain way.
aha.
You
I
know.
figured you were like me and came in on Justice, and then the Black Album was your
Nope.
second record. So the Black
Nope.
Album was your first record. That's why.
But I have to say though, it wasn't like I just listened to the Black Album.
Sure.
I was listening those songs were on MTV a lot. But then it was right when they released Live Shit Binge and Purge.
Yeah.
So they were releasing the videos for they did one for like of live footage of Fade to Black, what was it, From the Bell Tolls, and then when I started getting the albums, I didn't even get the Black Album first. I think the first ones I got Ride Lightning and Justice. And
Hmm.
then my neighbor had Master of Puppets and and the Black Album. So we would like, I'll borrow the album for this week,
Sure.
and then we would share. So in a weird way, I got to absorb their entire catalog kind of all at once.
Hmm.
So I didn't have this distinction between like
Right.
old and new. It was just this is Metallica songs, and obviously it's easy to understand the difference between like, oh, these songs sound this way, and this is when I heard Justice, like, whoa, this is a different level of intensity. But I didn't. I think in the same way where I have a sentimentality towards the Black Album, I think the inverse is true. Where if you heard that version of it, you have a sentimentality of what Metallica supposedly should be, right? Whereas like I think because I heard that era, I have a more open-minded understanding of what the band is.
You didn't have any preconceived expectations or notions of what it was
Exactly,
going to be.
exactly. But like I said, on the inverse, I that was the first thing I'm hearing is Enter Sandman.
Right.
So there's no, you can't go back. You hear it how it is, and so I think that also factors in my like philosophy on not just music, but I think creative output in general is that I think I'm pretty open-minded. And when bands change or like let's say I'm a big fan of a director and they put out a weird movie and or whatever they experiment, like I'm much more open to like people trying things and being artists, and it's not about making me happy personally. Like I don't feel like I said that's for a business. A business is supposed to make you happy, right? Like every time you go to McDonald's, the hamburger's supposed to taste the same. Art is not like that. Like I'm not here as this like consumer who's like, you need to give me what I want. I don't think music is like that. I think it should be I'm on a journey I'm on a journey with the artist to see where they go.
Hmm.
And and even if they don't necessarily nail it, I always find that journey to be way more interesting than someone who's just doing a business and giving me feeding me what they think I want.
Right. Right. Right.
I'm always gonna find that much more interesting. And I love that. And I love going back and like the weird records that people, oh, this record, I don't know, didn't do it for me. But I'll go back and like, man, there's something happening there that's fascinating. And I love kind of sitting in that, and going because usually what happens, a band will do the weird record and they'll kind of go back to what they were known for, but a little bit of that weird stuff kind of ends up in the new sound and always makes it better. Like always, like people, Machine Head is a band that's had a lot of different sounds, and
Sure.
they never forget. They all everything every venture they bring that into whatever they're doing now, so it keeps the music very interesting and keeps evolving. And it's never just like this is what Machine Head is. No, it's gonna be the new Machine Head is always gonna be new Machine Head,
Right.
and everything they've done will kind of make its presence felt in that.
So now the tough part, what tune can we play from you from Metallica? It could be from any album. What can we play for you on Mandatory Metallica?
So I'm gonna do a deep cut. All right.
Okay.
This is from Death Magnetic. It's called Broken, Beaten, and Scarred.
Oh, okay.
And it's one of those songs like people don't know. And then they hear it, you're gonna be a head bopping, grooving at your house, happy smiling dude when you hear this song. All right. It's a deep cut. It's got some riffs, bro.
I like the ender on that album, My Apocalypse. They Metallica's been on a good run of like ending albums really strong, like they did on Master of Puppets. But they started doing that the last couple with Hardwired and even that one.
Dude, I put on like I don't know when this was. I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, 8 months ago. I was just like in my car and I started listening to like the newer Metallica albums, and they're all just bangers. Like Death Magnetic is there's kind of no misses on that record. It's fucking like because people complained about the mastering of the record. I'm just like, shut the fuck up, man.
Yeah.
This is sick. Like they have no business being putting out records this good this late in their career. And it's like the way I am, I'm like, if I'm a fan of something, I'm a fan.
Hmm.
More of it is good,
Yep.
right? Like I like Marvel movies, right? Everyone loves hating on Marvel, but I'm just like, it's a Marvel movie. I'm pretty happy. What are you complaining about? Like, I don't know. It's like I feel like almost like this stuff. It's like drugs, right? People are like, man, the heroin don't hit like it used to, man. The heroin we had in '85, man. You don't remember that heroin, like, and it's like, hey, man. Can it just be different?
Could just
Maybe
be
you
heroin.
changed. But no, but it's kind of like that, right? Like I'm sure the first time someone does heroin, it's like the greatest. But then
Yeah.
you've been doing the same drug, it don't hit the same, you know?
The
By the
law
way,
of
I've
diminishing
never done
returns.
heroin, and don't kids don't do drugs.
Yeah.
But but I think it's a little bit like that, that the same thing does not gratify you the same way, right? So but I'm just a fan of things, and if I'm not a fan of it, I just don't consume it. I don't sit around and be
Bitch
mad about
about it. Right. Yeah. Right. Just move on to the next.
it. Exactly. It
Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for the time. Always a blast to talk to you. And I can't wait to see that God Forbid show. I definitely want to come out to the Regent Theater and see the whole set,
It's
man.
gonna be great. Hit me up.
I definitely will. I'll let you know when this airs and everything too, and keep in touch.
Yeah, I'll repost it and all that stuff. It
Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for the time. Safe travels out there, and I'll see you in December and talk to you before then.
was a lot of fun, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Cheers. Take
Bye
care.
bye.